I want to ask you something about the home prices here, because I know we had some stuff come out here locally, and do we still see the same kind of numbers here locally as they talking about here nationally, Art, with the price still going up?
Well, yes and no. I mean, in our local market, there has been a little bit of a decrease in the median price, but not a whole lot. In other words, we're talking in a couple of percentage points. So and then it varies by city. Of course, for the folks who are not familiar with the Coachella Valley, we got 9 different cities here. We've got sort of our own little micro market, and you have to look at each city where you're going to see variances between the median prices and the changes to those prices, from month to month and year over year and so forth. And so, depending on the city, you can see there has been some decrease in the median price from a year ago, whereas others it's held more firm or even still slightly above the previous year. But I think the overall point there is, I think there's some folks out there who are on the sidelines wanting to own a home, who are somehow still holding on with the notion that, we're waiting for home prices to fall, maybe to the extent that they did back in the Great Recession of '08. The conditions are simply not there to suggest that that's going to happen. As I just commented on, the labor market's doing just fine. Real wage growth has been basically, if not exceeding the inflation rate, holding pretty steady to that inflation rate. So folks are not, drastically losing purchasing power, although some of the headlines would, suggest otherwise. The data, though, doesn't support that. So, and foreclosure activity, compared to the Great Recession is next to nothing. I mean, in a relative sense, and I've said before, I think part of the reason for that, and I'll give credit to the folks who are running the country back in 2010 when the CFPB was created and the whole new set of mortgage qualifying rules were put into place in the industry, what we call ATR, the ability to repay, meaning we have to document your income, and we do that extensively. Yes, it can be frustrating. It can be tedious. But I think the byproduct of going through that process, rather than the simple, easy sign an application. I'm not going to tell you where I work. I'm not going to tell you how much I make. Just give me the loan because I've got a good down payment, a decent credit score. That didn't work. And so that's why all those foreclosures occurred at the time. Now, all the folks who've gotten mortgages since '08, they were put through the process. Yes, it's a tedious one, although we here at Mortgage Works try to make it less tedious for you. What it did is it established that the folks who got those loans were able to afford them. So unless they ran into a sort of a event in their life that disrupted their income for some reason, most folks are doing just fine. The loans that they initially got, they were able to afford it, and they still can. And so as a consequence, it's just not been a set of conditions that would suggest that home prices are going to fall. And I've said before too, we're actually, even with a little bit of an uptick this week and the overall little bit of an uptick since February when this Iran war started, mortgage rates are still 2 to 2.5% better than they were in 2023.